Hello everyone, and welcome back to another sewing video. I hope you get some inspiration from this video and maybe learn how to make some simple and easy summer dresses for a little girl. These are so easy to make, and we're going to start off with our pattern here. We will need a few pieces from our pattern, along with a good pair of some scissors, and I have these weights here that I use. I currently do not know where to actually purchase these, but I got these years ago. And we're going to also be using some t-shirts. These are in Chloe's size, so we'll be using these for the top of our dress. And then I have some extra fabric, some scraps, some old dresses that I no longer wear that we'll be using as well, and also this t-shirt that I found on clearance at Walmart. This is a 2XL, so I'm hoping that we'll have enough fabric here to make a dress, and we'll see how it turns out. So I just thought this fabric was really cute with the gold stripes, so we'll try to use that one as well. And for my fabric here, I have, like I said, some old scraps, just some pieces that I wanted to get used up, as well as some older dresses of mine that I no longer wear, that don't fit, or just weren't fitting right anymore, that I no longer wear, that are still in really good shape. We'll be using those as well. So to get started off with, we are going to start with this pink t-shirt, and I thought this little tie on the bottom was so cute. I thought maybe I could somehow incorporate it into the dress. I didn't end up using it then, but it would be really cute to use this in the dress as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get out the front bodice pattern from my pattern, and I'll try to find this pattern and link it below. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it for you, but I'll see. I'll do my best. I really like this pattern. Nice simple pattern. It fits Chloe really well right now. I do have to lengthen the skirt for her, but we're basically just going to lay the bodice pattern onto the t-shirt and then just cutting it, measuring down from the bottom of the armhole down to the waistline, and then we'll cut it right there. And I am lengthening it just a bit for Chloe, since this will be hopefully lasting her all summer, and she grows so fast. We're going to try to make these dresses a little long for her right now, that way they will last all summer. We're going to pair that t-shirt up with this pretty pink fabric. It's a nice knit fabric that we won't have to serge or anything, and it has a really pretty floral pattern on it. So again, we're going to use the skirt from our pattern and just cut this out, and I'm going to cut it out, since I'm a little short on my fabric here, I'm going to cut it out just the length of the skirt pattern, and then we'll go ahead and cut an extra straight piece of fabric out for a ruffle on the bottom. And this is me just figuring out how I can get the back skirt out of this piece of fabric as well. And then once we get it figured out how we can get both of these pieces out, I'm going to go ahead and cut the back portion out as well, and then leaving a little bit of a seam allowance there in the center seam, just so I can get my seam in without making the skirt too narrow. And the skirt length is totally up to your liking. If you want more of a traditional summer dress, you could definitely make the skirt just a little bit shorter for a shorter version of this dress. As well as the t-shirt, if you would want like a sleeveless dress, you could totally get a sleeveless t-shirt to pair with your skirt. Alright, and then I also cut out these strips like I said earlier, and then we're just going to be sewing these strips together to make a nice long strip for the front as well as the back. Once we have those strips sewn, there will be a seam in the back, so we'll just iron that down really well on the back and then also on the front side of the fabric. And then we sewed together the back skirt as well. So this is the back seam going down the back, and then we'll just iron that on the back side and then on the right side of the fabric. So now on our little strips that we sewn together, and then on the front one as well, we're going to just put a gathering stitch up here at the top so that we can gather it and put it on the bottom of the skirt. Here is our gathering stitch, just a big stitch to where you can gather everything nicely. And I'm just going to lay out my back skirt here and then match up those back seams on the skirt and then on the ruffle piece, and then I'm going to pin that in the center just so that stays where it needs to be. And then I'm going to start gathering through the gathering stitch and just getting it nice and even, and then we'll just fit that into the skirt there on the bottom. And then once you have all your gathers kind of evened out, evenly spaced, you'll just want to pin everything down really well. And then we'll do the other side of the skirt just like this. I'm just going ahead and sewing down our gathers, and I'm just basically sewing on top of the gathering stitch. And this is an easy way to add a little length to your dress if your skirt is short, or you didn't have enough fabric like I did to make the skirt one long piece, or just want to add a little bit of extra interest to your dress. This is an easy way to do it, and it is really not that hard to do. Once we have that all sewn in, we're going to do that on the front skirt as well. Just do the exact same thing on the front skirt. And then I'm going to go ahead and just iron the ruffles down a little bit, or at least the seam of the ruffles. This just helps the gathers to stand a little bit nicer, just keep them a little bit flatter, and keep the seam ironed down really nice to where it just stands a little bit better and it looks a little bit neater. So here is how the skirt looks when it's done. And then once I had the front skirt done as well, I'm going to go ahead and just put these together, right sides facing together. And then I'm ready to pin everything together, making sure the gathering, where we did the seam there at the gathers, is matching up, and then we'll just fit in the rest of the dress. And I did have a little bit of extra there at the sides. I'll just go ahead and pin that, and then once it's sewn, I'll cut off the excess. And then here I did go ahead and just really quick make a little belt here. Basically it's just an extra piece of fabric. I think it was like 3 inches wide, and then I just measured it and made it fit to the waist, and then I'm just folding it over and pinning it onto the skirt first, and just matching up any seams. I think I had a seam there at the back, so I just tried to match that up to where it would match up with the seam. So I'm pinning this onto the skirt, and then we will get our t-shirt and pin that on as well. So once you're ready for your t-shirt, you'll just put that inside the skirt, and then basically just matching up your side seams. Make sure if you have a seam in the back of your skirt, make sure the back of the t-shirt is facing the back of the skirt. That way you won't end up with a seam down the front of your dress when you turn it right side out again. So first of all, just make sure that your side seams are lined up right. Pin those, and then you can basically just fit in the rest of the t-shirt to make it fit your skirt. And then once we have everything pinned, we're ready to sew it in. And we're basically just starting at one of the side seams and then going all the way around the waist. Alright, so our dress is ready to turn right side out. Just making sure we have everything sewed in right. There's our little belt. We're going to turn that one down, and then we're going to pop it over to the ironing board. Just give it a good nice iron, get everything smoothed out, and get it ironed out really well. And here is how our dress is turning out, looking so cute so far. And then I wanted to add just a little bit of an embellishment here on the belt, and we have this little flower that I thought would match really good with this dress. So I'm basically just going to hand stitch this one on there. Just figure out where you want it on your belt and hand stitch it on. I'm going to go ahead and pin it kind of where I think I want it, just to keep it in place while I'm stitching it on. So in order to keep my stitches kind of hidden, I'm stitching kind of underneath all the little folds of the flower. That way you won't be able to see my hand stitches. And here you can kind of tell how I'm stitching just kind of under those folds. That way it's all hidden and you won't be able to see it. And once this flower is sewn on, basically all you have left to do is just put a hem in the bottom of your skirt, and this dress is ready to go. And then for our next dress, we're going to use this black fabric, and this one also kind of has a pretty floral print made into the fabric. Then we're going to pair it with this purple t-shirt. So first we're going to cut out our skirt with this fabric, and this was also a scrap, so I'm hoping I have enough. I did end up having to piece the front skirt, which was fine. Usually when I have to piece something like this, I just try to make it look like it was supposed to be like that. So we're going to do that with the skirt here as well. So for the back skirt, I'm just going to lay out the pattern, get that one cut out. And here I'm just measuring the t-shirt and just kind of making the skirt on the top the same width so that the t-shirt will fit in really nicely with the skirt. And I'm also cutting the skirt longer so that it will fit Chloe, because she is definitely getting really tall. So here I'm just trying to figure out how I can get the other skirt cut out of here. So I'm just, moving stuff around, trying to figure out how to get everything cut out. And yeah, like I said, I did piece this one into different pieces, but I'll show you how I got that just pieced together to where it doesn't look like it's a piece skirt. So here are the two pieces. I cut it kind of on an angle, just for a little bit something different. And then I'm gonna take both of those seams where we'll sew it together, and I'm going to take a zigzag stitch over them, stretching it as I'm sewing it, and this will give it just a little slight ruffle to that edge there. That's what we're doing here. We're going to do that on both of those pieces where that seam will be in a little bit. So here is how the little ruffle looks on the one piece, and then we're going to do the other piece as well. Alright, and then we're going to sew these wrong sides together. That way our seam with this little ruffle detail will be on the outside of the dress, and this will just make it look like it was supposed to be cut this way. It won't look like such a mistake, or like you didn't have enough fabric like I did. So we're going to pin that together, just fitting everything in, and then we're going to put a top stitch on here, get that sewn together. So here is how the skirt will look. It'll just be like kind of a diagonal seam down the front. Next, we need to pin together our skirts together, right sides together this time. I'm just pinning down the sides where the seams will go, pinning the top and then the bottom, and then just kind of fitting in the rest. And this fabric, being this is a knit fabric, it does not have to be serged or anything on the edges. It won't unravel on me, so this one will be fine just to sew it like this. After pinning both sides of the skirt together, now we need to just sew down the side seams. And then after it is sewed, we'll just iron these side seams really well on the back and then on the front as well. So here is our purple top that we'll be putting together. So you'll want the skirt inside out again, and then you'll put the t-shirt, again, you'll put that inside the skirt, and then first just pinning together the side seams with the t-shirt side seams, and then you can basically just fit in the rest of the skirt with the bodice of your t-shirt, and just pinning everything down really well. And now we're just sewing that waist seam in, getting the t-shirt and the skirt sewn together. So here is this dress, and you could totally leave it just like this if you would want to. I decided to go a step further and add a couple covered buttons. So you'll need your little round piece of fabric that you're using, the covered buttons, the front and the back, as well as the little things to cover your buttons with. So first we're going to take our piece of fabric, put it into the clear piece, and then adding in your front piece of the button, and then just kind of tucking in that fabric around tucking it in really nice. And then you'll take your back piece of the button, push that on top, and then use the little blue thing to press it into the button. And when you hear it snap, you'll know it's in there really well. Then you can pull it out and you have a covered button. And these are really pretty to match your buttons to a certain fabric color or whatever. These work really well. So we're going to go ahead and make one more, and just doing it the same way. And these are super easy to make, I think. It's just something really pretty to add. So we have two of them here. So I'm laying out the dress, kind of just figuring out where I want to put the buttons. And I thought this would just add a little bit something to the top here. And so I'm gonna just go ahead and hand sew these on once I figured out where I want them. And now that I have one on, again, I'm just gonna put the other one on, make sure it's straight, and figure out where I want it, and then go ahead and sew that one on as well. And then our next dress, we're going to use this pink top here, and then we're going to pair it with this nice aqua skirt. From my dress, this was a dress that I wasn't wearing anymore, so I thought I might as well get a second life out of it. So I wasn't sure how long to make the dress, so I grabbed one of her dresses that she's currently wearing just to kind of measure from the shoulder down to the hem to see how long I need to make this dress. And then once we have that measurement, we can go ahead and cut out our dress. I'm going to measure the t-shirt from the shoulder to where I'll put the seam, and then you can take your other measurement from the dress and then just figure out how long your skirt needs to be. So this dress, I'm going to leave the t-shirt the full length, and then we'll just have like a shorter skirt on this one. I thought this would be something fun to do, just to add a little bit, a different style of dress, and I wanted to try this and see how it turned out, and I was really happy. I thought it was really cute in the end. So here our skirt, we're just measuring out, and this is totally not professional how you should cut out a skirt, I'm sure, but this is how I did, just quick cut it out. And so here is our skirt, and then I'm taking my t-shirt again, just kind of measuring where I want it. I will be putting gathers in the top, so I'm going to cut a little bit off, but still leaving plenty of room there for gathers. And it's about double for the space that I need for gathers. Now this fabric, I will need to serge it, or you can do like a zigzag stitch if you don't have a serger, but I'm going to go ahead and get the skirt serged really quick on all the edges. That way it's ready to sew together and we won't have any unraveling, and our dress will stay nice. So here are our two skirts. Now this is going to be super simple. Just put the skirts together, right sides together again, pinning down those sides. And once you have both sides pinned, you'll be ready to sew down the side seams. And before we start with our gathers, we'll want to go ahead and just iron down those side seams that we made first on the back, and then once we have the back nice and ironed, we'll turn it around and iron it on the front side as well. And here we're just putting a gathering stitch up here at the top again, going from one of the side seams all the way around back again. Just don't overlap your stitches there where you started. You'll want just a little bit of a gap there to where you can get your gathers in right. There is my little gap and my gathering stitches. So on the side where I didn't start sewing my gathering stitches, I'm going to pin that side seam together with my t-shirt side seam, and then I can go on the opposite side of the skirt and start my gathers. And then we're just basically gathering till we get that fit in, and then just even out your gathers, make sure they're nice and even, and yeah, not all to one side or something. And then once you have them nice and even, you can start just pinning your skirt to your t-shirt. And I am going to be leaving this pretty detail, the little roughly detail edging from the t-shirt, I'll be leaving that on. So I want that on the outside of my skirt, so I'm pinning it to where the seam will be on the outside. And you can kind of see here what I mean by leaving that roughly detail on the outside. The skirt will kind of go on the inside then. And then I'll go ahead and just do a top stitch here. And being this is a t-shirt and it's really stretchy, I did go ahead and do this in a zigzag stitch just so it wouldn't tear as easily. Now I know there are needles and threads and things that you can get specifically for a t-shirt dress. I didn't have any on hand at the moment, so I just did a zigzag stitch, and hopefully that'll be good enough. Alright, and here is our dress. Basically all we need is a nice hem here on the bottom, which is what I'm doing here. Just put a nice, I just had to use a small seam like for a hem, and this dress was done. And then of course I'm just going to iron that hem, especially in the skirt, get everything ironed out really well. Alright, and on to our next dress. We're going to use this pretty little t-shirt here, and I love the little roughly details on the sleeves as well as the pocket. Chloe was loving the pocket. She was so thrilled. So yeah, this one worked out perfect. And again, we're going to pair it with one of my dresses that I'm no longer wearing. We're going to use the skirt in this one for this dress as well. And again, just using our skirt pattern to cut out our skirt. And I will be cutting this skirt longer as well. I'm just using my little ruler just to cut it a little bit longer. And now on to the side seams. I did go ahead and give this a quick serge around all the edges there, and then we're going to pin the side seams together at the top and then the bottom, and then finish pinning it all the way through. Next is, of course, ironing open all of our seams. Again, I think this is an important step of sewing. Make sure you get everything ironed really well. It just helps the end result to turn out a little bit better. And I did go ahead and just cut down that t-shirt to our bodice length like I did on the first dress. And now I'm just making sure that back seam is at the back of the t-shirt, and then just aligning up the side seams with our side seams on the t-shirt, and then go ahead and pinning everything in place. And once everything is pinned, you're ready to sew your waist together. And hopefully by now you can tell how easy these dresses are to make. They're so simple. It's basically just a skirt and sewing the skirt on, and a lot of those, like the extra touches that I put on Chloe's dresses, you don't have to go that far. You can just do a simple dress and they are super cute. Alright, and this is how the dress is looking so far. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good iron there around the waist just to make that stand a little bit better. So we are done with that dress. Moving on to this t-shirt. Now this was probably the most challenging one just because I barely got all the pieces out of this t-shirt. Thankfully this was a long sleeve t-shirt, which is why I thought I would be able to get everything out because I'll be using the sleeves as well. So first of all, we're going to basically just cut this thing apart, cutting off the sleeves first of all. Then cutting open the shoulder seams as well as cutting open a side seam. Alright, so now that we have everything cut apart, I'm going to lay it together here, making sure that these ruffles line up. And then once we have that lined up, I'm going to go ahead and get the bodice pattern out, just kind of laying it on here, seeing where I want the ruffles to come, you know, on the bodice, the front of the dress, kind of figuring out where I want all that to come. And then once I have that figured out, I'm going to go ahead and put the weights on and then cut it out. And then at the front of the dress, I am going to leave that extra there, there at the center of the bodice, because I have something in mind to do with that extra fabric. I'm just going to leave it. And then I'm going to cut a little slit there at the center where the center is. That way I know how wide the bodice needs to be. And then here I'm just folding back those little ruffles. That way I don't cut them off accidentally while I'm cutting out the armhole. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for our back bodice as well. Now the skirt was where the challenge came in, to try to get the skirt out. Now granted, this dress did turn out a little shorter, which I'm okay with. It's a little shorter than the other dresses. So here I'm just cutting out the bottom part of the skirt. I'll go up to where the ruffles start on the t-shirt, and then we'll cut out a different piece for the top part of the skirt. And this skirt did turn out to be in 3 pieces, so you'll see here in a bit how the 3 pieces come together. So I used part of the sleeve, I folded it up, and that will be our top piece of the skirt. And then with the remaining part of that sleeve, I did go ahead and cut out Chloe's sleeves for her dress. It was a really tight fit, but I managed to get the sleeves cut out. And this dress will be sewn more like a traditional dress with the bodice. I'll have to sew the bodice together as well. If you do want a full tutorial on sewing a dress, you know, with a traditional pattern, I have a video on that as well. I'll be sure to link that in the description box. So here on our bodice front, we're just sewing down where we had made those slits. We're sewing down the middle of our bodice. And then we'll take it over to the ironing board and then lay this piece open here, as you can see me do here, and this will just add something extra to the bodice down the center. Now you could totally add some buttons on here. I didn't on this dress because I thought it was busy enough, but a couple cute buttons would look really pretty on this. And then after that, I'm going to sew together the front and the back bodice here at the shoulder seams. And then I also had cut out like the interfacing part for the bodice, so I did go ahead and sew those together at the shoulder seams as well. And here we are just sewing around the neck. Once we had our shoulders sewn together, we pinned the bodice pieces with the interfacing or like the lining for the neck together, and then now we're just sewing this together. Hopefully this all makes sense. If you watch my dressmaking tutorial, I'll try to remember to link that one for you. This will all make total sense. For this video, I was trying to keep it short, because this video is going to be long enough the way it is. And then we're just going to cut in our slits here around the neck. This makes so that your neck will lay nice and be nice and round. And the next step is then to iron down our neck there where we sewn it, to get everything ironed down really well. And next here is our sleeves. We're going to sew on our sleeves. I have everything pinned down ready to go, so I'm just sewing those on right now. So here is how our sleeves look, and the ruffles kind of hang over the sleeves. And then I did add this piece here at the back where the opening will be, so I added a strip of fabric down. I did sew up like halfway up the back of the bodice, and then the rest will put this fabric. I sewed it down one way, and now I'm just tucking it over around the seam allowance where I had sewn it, and then I'll be sewing a top stitch right on that seam, or kind of in the ditch there where the seam comes together, if that makes sense. And this will just kind of finish off this back piece here, and then I'll add a button a little bit later. Right, so now I'm going to take my sewing machine and just top stitch it there right in that little groove there. And this will make so that the top stitch, you really won't be able to see it. It's kind of hidden and you won't even know it's there. So here is how that looks once it's sewn in. Just kind of adds a finishing touch to that. And then I decided to change out my thread for this gold thread. I had a little bit left from another project, and I thought this would match really well with the gold stripes on the dress. So I'm going to use this as my top stitch for the ends of the sleeves. I just wanted to put a small little hem in the sleeves, so I'll use this gold thread, and yeah, this will just make it blend in with the dress. Next we will be working on the skirt. So this is the bottom part of the skirt, and then the top part will be in two pieces, and I went ahead and sewed those together. So that's what that one will look like. So we'll sew these two pieces together then, right sides together again, and I'm just going to pin those together before I sew them. And here I am just sewing those two pieces together, and then once I had that sewn together, you're going to want to sew the skirt onto your waist. So the front pieces together and then do the same with the back. Alright, so now we have our dress kind of put together. All that we need to do now is sew those side seams together. So we'll put those right sides together as well, just matching up all the seams as they go down, and then sew that down the side. And then to finish this off here, I am using again the zigzag stitch, stretching the fabric for the hem. So this just adds a little bit of that little ruffle there at the end for the hem. So once this was done, this dress was done as well. And then the last thing that I needed to do on this dress was just put this little piece of fabric here that I had sewn together like in a tube. And so this will be for kind of our buttonhole. So I just sewed that on, and then I'm going to use this cute little wooden button. I'm going to sew that on the opposite side, and that will be how we close the dress in the back. Alright, so that is all of our dresses with 5 new dresses. Chloe was absolutely thrilled. She was so excited to show them all off for you, and here is how they look.